The whistle is already between your teeth when the second horn sounds, and you don't remember biting down on it. Salt has dried into the leather cinches over your knees. Somewhere below the ridge, iron kettles are boiling rice for men who will not eat it before dawn. The wall runs pale under a moon 3 days from full. The stone wall your province spent 7 years building after the first invasion, chest high in places, waist high in others, a border drawn in quarried granite because paper treaties had already failed once. It is day 11 of the siege. It is 2:13 in the morning. The dragon under you breathes in a slow 4 count. You memorize the way you memorized your father's prayers. Its left wing carries a membrane scar, healed crooked, a wound from Tsushima. From the spring, everything on that island burned. You did not give it that scar. You gave it nothing you can name. Some animals you keep at a distance on purpose so that losing them stays a matter of supply and requisition instead of something you'd have to survive. This was meant to be one of those animals. It has not stayed one. 6 years ago, you found the egg half buried in ash on a beach that no longer had a name worth using. You carried it 40 miles in a rice sack. It hatched during a thunderstorm, and for 3 nights afterward it would not eat unless you held the fish yourself in your bare hand and let it take the meat an inch from your fingers. The whistle came later, carved from a Mongol arrowhead you pulled out of its wing the same year the scar formed, filed down, drilled through, strung on sinew. One note, high and short, means come down. You have used it 412 times. You have counted. You are a scout rider. This is written on no scroll, carries no rank, and is worth more to your commander than 40 mounted men, because the strait between Kyushu and the Mongol staging islands is 11 miles of water no horse can cross and no runner can outpace. Your commander keeps a wooden board nailed to the inside of the command tent, a tally board, notches cut with a carpenter's chisel, one for every flight you've flown that returned useful information. 41 notches by day 11. He has told you, more than once, that the board and the dragon are the same instrument. He means this as a compliment. You have started to hear it as an instruction. Before day 11, the days had a shape you could set a clock by. You flew at first light and again at dusk, following the line of the wall north to the river mouth and back. An hour each way, low enough to read sail markings and high enough to stay out of arrow range, a height you learned by trial, the hard way, during the first invasion 7 years earlier, when a Mongol crossbow bolt had come close enough to part the hair over your left ear. You fed the dragon at 5 or sharp, mackerel first, the fatty cuts, because a scout that hunts on the wing is a scout that stops watching. You slept in 2 shifts of 3 hours, same as every other rider, and you believed, honestly, that this was the whole of what the war would ask of you. Attention, repetition, small competent hours stacked into a siege. Day 11 taught you otherwise. You did not know that yet at 5 o'clock that morning, feeding fish into a mouth that had never once, in 6 years, taken a finger by mistake. Hidetsuna is not a rider. He is a foot soldier, sworn brother to you since you were both 9, and he broke a tooth catching a stone meant for your head, and he volunteers for the night raids, small boats, 6 men to a hull, oars wrapped in cloth, sliding out past the wall to set fire to anchored Mongol ships while their crews sleep on deck in the heat. He wears a length of red cord knotted at his left wrist, his mother's, tied there the morning the muster call came. He has told you, more than once, that the cord is not for luck. He says luck is for men who don't have anything better. He says the cord is so that if he washes ashore somewhere without his face left, someone will know which body was his. Your commander's order, given plainly on day 9, is this. You fly for signal and reconnaissance only. You do not fly to extract. You do not fly to intervene. The dragon is the only eyes the garrison has over the water, and eyes cannot be spent on single men when the whole coast may need them by morning. You accept this order the way you accept weather. You tell yourself, quietly, that refusing your own instincts for the sake of the larger defense is the hardest and best thing you have ever been asked to do. You believe this completely. You will go on believing it for some time. At 1:47 in the morning on day 11, 3 flares go up from the water, Hidetsuna's signal, The raid gone wrong, a Mongol patrol boat spotted before the fires could be set. You are already in the saddle by 1:52. The dragon's wings are half spread, testing the wind, and the whistle sits cold against your lower lip. Ready. You do not blow it. You have the order in one ear and the flares in both eyes, and for 6 minutes you hold the dragon still with your knees and your voice, murmuring the same 4 count it breathes to, telling it to wait, telling yourself the same thing in different words. Discipline, patience, the math of the whole coast against the math of one boat. By 2:13, the flares stop. You still don't move. The teeth marks you will find in the iron whistle months later, worn into a groove exactly the width of your bite, start on this night. You do not fly. You have never told anyone, before or since, how long 6 minutes can be measured in. Morning brings back 4 boats out of 5. Hidetsuna's is not among them. 2 men from his crew are pulled out of the shallows near the wall at 6:40, one dead of a spear wound taken before the water ever got him, one alive and unable to say what happened to the other 4 once the patrol boat found them in the fog. Hidetsuna is not listed among the dead because there is no body to list. He is listed as missing, which in a siege log means the same thing with a different amount of paperwork. You fly your assigned signal route that afternoon anyway, because the order did not change and neither did the strait. You cut a 40-second notch into the tally board that evening with your own hand, because the board doesn't know what happened at 1:52 and you don't tell it. Your commander finds you at the board and says the thing that will follow you for the rest of the siege, that your restraint on day 11, holding the dragon back under fire, under flares, under the noise of men who might have been your brothers, is the reason the garrison still has eyes at all. He uses the word discipline. He is not wrong about what happened. He is wrong about why. By day 15, no word. By day 23, the Mongol force has dug into Shiga Island, close enough that you can see cook fires from the ridge, and the siege has become a matter of daily attrition instead of decisive engagement. Small raids, small deaths, the wall holding because it was built to hold, and nothing more dramatic than that. You keep flying signal routes. You keep not flying anything else. Somewhere in this stretch, without deciding to, you stop thinking of the order as a constraint and start thinking of it as a kind of proof about yourself. Other riders would have broken formation for a brother. You did not. You have started to file this under virtue. Men bring you their own restraint now, hold it up next to yours for comparison, the way soldiers do with anything that might be mistaken for courage. Younger riders ask how you managed it. You give them an answer about the greater good and the strait and the math, and it comes out smoother each time you say it. The edges worn the way the whistle's groove is being worn, a little more each week, by the same motion repeated in the dark. On day 19th, a second test comes, smaller than the first and easier to survive. A fishing skiff drifts inside Mongol range at dusk, an old man aboard who has nothing to do with any army and simply misjudged the tide. And this time, the flare goes up close enough to the wall that you fly without consulting the order at all, and pull him out of the water 40 minutes before dark. Your commander does not reprimand you. He does not need to. The old man was close enough to the wall that flying to him barely counts as a decision, and you know this, and you let the men around you believe otherwise anyway, because it costs you nothing and it keeps the shape of the story consistent. You have started curating the evidence. You do not think of it that way. You think of it as being modest about a rescue. Day 27's. Hidetsuna's mother comes to the garrison gate one final time before she stops coming altogether, and the guard on duty sends for you specifically because you are the last rider who flew anywhere near where her son was lost. She asks you nothing accusatory. She asks only whether the water that night was cold, an odd specific question, the kind grief asks when it has run out of the larger ones. You tell her it was warm for the season. This is true. It is also the only true thing you say to her, because when she asks whether you saw the flares, you tell her the fog was too thick to see anything at all, and she nods and thanks you and leaves, and you stand at the gate a long time afterward with the whistle warm in your closed fist, having just used it to lie for the first time, though not, you will understand later, for the last. Day 31. A supply runner mentions, in passing, that Hidetsuna's mother has stopped asking after him at the garrison gate. This is not delivered as news. It is delivered the way weather is delivered, a fact among facts, and you receive it the same way, because that is what 6 minutes on day 11 has trained you to do with facts that used to be unbearable. Day 41. The sky over the strait goes the color of a bruise 3 days old, and the birds that usually work the shoreline at dawn do not come. Your commander has felt storms before, and reads this one in the pressure behind his own eyes before the first reports arrive. By afternoon, the water off Shiga Island has gone flat and glassy in a way that isn't calm, it's a held breath, and the Mongol fleet, hundreds of vessels, lashed together at anchor for mutual support, exactly the arrangement that makes a fleet strong against boarding and catastrophic against weather, sits there doing nothing about it, because they have nowhere else to put 900 ships. By early evening, the garrison sends runners along the coast, ordering fishing families inland. Nets and drying racks abandoned mid-repair, cook fires kicked out half-fed. You watch this from the ridge and think, not for the first time, that the wall was built to stop ships and was never going to be enough on its own, that the sea itself has always been the larger wall, indifferent to which side it favors on any given night. The order comes again, almost word for word. The dragon does not fly into this. It is the only asset the garrison has that a typhoon cannot replace by spring, and a typhoon is coming, and you will keep it under cover, tethered, fed, and alive, because whatever survives tonight will be what wins whatever comes after. You agree, again, completely, the way you agreed on day 11. It sounds like the same decision, because it is. By full dark, the wind has a pitch to it you feel through your back teeth. You are in the shelter, cut into the ridge, one hand on the dragon's neck, feeling its 4-count breathing go ragged for the first time since it was small enough to hold. Somewhere below, on a signal pier that was never built to survive this, 6 men are trapped by a collapsed gangway with the tide rising under them, and word of it reaches the ridge at 9:50 by a runner who is soaked to the skin and shouting a name that isn't Hidetsuna's but could be. You have the whistle in your hand. You do not lift it to your mouth. The wind alone would tear a dragon out of the sky tonight, you tell yourself, and this is true. And it is also, you will understand much later, beside the point. The pier goes under at some hour nobody agreed to record. The dragon does not stop breathing hard until well after midnight, long after there is nothing left on that stretch of shoreline to be afraid for. Dawn on what the garrison will later call Day 53 comes flat and enormous and strange, the way mornings do after something has ended without anyone announcing it. The Mongol fleet that anchored together for strength is now spread across 11 miles of coastline in pieces, hulls, spars, men, none of it moving with any purpose. The invasion, in the practical sense the word is used for in siege logs, is over. It ended the way the whole coast had hoped it might and had stopped daring to plan for. Not by the wall, not by the raids, but by weather, which does not take orders from anyone's discipline. Your commander finds you on the ridge that afternoon and does something he has not done in 53 days. He smiles briefly and tells the garrison within your hearing that the dragon survived to fly reconnaissance on the aftermath, to confirm the retreat, to make the difference between a cautious victory and a blind one, and that this is owed entirely to a rider who held steady when it would have been so easy, so human, to fly for a friend instead. He does not know Hidetsuna's name. He uses the word friend generically, an example, not aimed at anyone in particular. It lands on you like it was carved for the purpose. You walk the shoreline that evening because you tell yourself you are looking for salvage. You are looking for something else. At 5:20 you find, half buried in a tangle of rope and broken planking near where the signal pier used to stand, a short length of wood with notches cut into it in a hand you recognize immediately, because you taught Hidetsuna to count that way yourselves. As boys on a fence post, neither of you can remember the reason for any more. 11 notches. You do not know, at first, what they were counting. Then, you do. 11 nights he waited on the water for a signal that never came from the ridge. He kept his own tally of your restraint, the same number of days as the siege had gone before he stopped needing it. 3 feet further on, caught in the same tangle, is a length of red cord, salt stiffened, one end frayed the way rope frays against something for a long time, rather than snapping quickly against something sudden. You do not know whose wrist it came off, only that it is the same cord, the same knot pattern his mother tied, and that it did not come ashore attached to anything you would call a person any more. You go back to the ridge and take the whistle out of your mouth for the first time in what feels like a long while, and you look at it properly, under enough light to see. The groove worn into the iron by your own bite is deeper than you remembered making it. It sits exactly where your teeth rest when you're holding something back. You have called this discipline for 53 days. You start, now, counting from a different number to understand it as something narrower and less flattering. Not the choice to save the many over the one, made once under fire and validated by outcome, but a reflex, repeated twice under nearly identical conditions, that happened to be dressed both times in language large enough to hide inside. The dragon survived because you did not risk it. This is true, and it is also true that you did not risk it because losing it meant losing the only means you had of ever being anywhere else, ever again, faster than the water could take you, and that on both nights when someone needed the one thing you controlled, what you were actually protecting. Underneath the vocabulary of strategy and the greater coast and the math of the whole against the one was the animal that could carry you away from whatever came next. The wall held. The strait stayed watched. The garrison calls this a victory, and by every measure that gets written into a log, it is won. Your commander pins a cord of rank to your shoulder on day 55, in a ceremony with no irony in it at all, because no one present has any reason to look for some. You stand still for it. You have gotten very good, these past 55 days, at standing still for the wrong reasons and letting men call it the right one. You keep the whistle. You do not throw it into the strait, though you walk to the water's edge more than once with exactly that intention in your hand. You cannot explain, even to yourself, why a piece of iron the size of a fingernail has become the heaviest thing you own, only that every time you close your hand around it, you feel the groove find your teeth again on its own, an old habit reaching for an old excuse, and that somewhere under the coastline you helped hold, a boy who trusted a red cord to identify his own body is still, in every practical sense that matters, still waiting on the water for a sound you decided twice not to make.